A signal arrived on a Tuesday. It was a faint whisper from a place where no sound should be. Deep space is silent, a cold, hard vacuum. But this was different. This was an echo. It came from the Kepler-10 system, specifically from its dead star, a star that went dark 1,000,000 years ago. Nothing lives there. Nothing should be broadcasting from a cosmic graveyard. The signal was a single, repeating pulse. It was a pattern so complex, so deliberate, it could only be a message. Yet no known language could decipher it. It was a song sung in a key our science did not understand. The signal rippled across the Sol system. It touched every satellite and every deep space probe. On Earth, it made the data streams shiver. Experts were baffled. They called it the Deep Blue Echo. The name came from the spectral analysis. The energy source had a color profile unlike any star. It was a shade of blue that technically shouldn't exist. This echo was not meant for you. It was not meant for human ears at all. But you heard it. Humanity heard it. And humanity, in its endless curiosity, decided to answer. You are a specialist in first contact scenarios, or rather, failed first contact scenarios. Your job is to sift through the wreckage of misunderstandings. You translate the silences left behind by vanished races. You are good at your job. Too good. It has made you a little lonely. It has also made you the perfect candidate for this mission. The summons came on a datapad delivered by a military courier. The message was short. It was brutally to the point. You were assigned to the starship Stardust Drifter. Your new title was Mission Specialist. Your destination was a dead star. Your briefing was held in a secure room deep underground. The air was thick with importance. Generals with stern faces showed you the data. They showed you the impossible blue signature. They played the signal for you. It sounded like whale song mixed with grinding static. A sad, lonely sound from across an ocean of time. Your task was clear. Go to the source, identify the sender, and determine their intent. They didn't need to say the last part. The unspoken question was always there. Are they a threat? Are we in danger? The history of the universe suggested the answer was always yes. The Stardust Drifter is not a warship. It is a science vessel, a long-range explorer. Basically, a flying laboratory with a very big engine. Its crew is a collection of academics and dreamers. People who chose to study the stars instead of fight over planets. Your presence made them nervous. You were the professional pessimist among optimists, the one who packed a sidearm for a diplomatic mission. The ship's captain, a woman named Eva Rostova, greeted you at the airlock. She had kind eyes, but a firm handshake. She told you the ship was ready. She said she hoped this would be a peaceful discovery. You told her you hoped for the best, but prepared for the worst. It's a classic for a reason. The journey began with a smooth burn out of Earth's orbit. The blue marble of your home shrank behind you. It became a tiny, fragile jewel in a black velvet box. You settled into your quarters. They were small, functional, just enough room for a bunk, a desk, and your thoughts. You spent your time reviewing the signal data. You tried to find a pattern, a key, but it remained stubbornly alien, a lock without a keyhole. You felt a strange connection to it, a sense of familiarity that you could not place. It was like a memory from a dream. The Stardust Drifter engaged its faster-than-light drive. The stars outside your viewport streaked into long lines of light. The universe became a tunnel. You were a bullet fired into the great unknown. Weeks turned into months. The crew found their rhythm. They ran drills and analyzed sensor readings. They told jokes and shared meals. You remained mostly apart. You watched the star streaks and listened to the echo. The ship's computer played it on a loop in your quarters, a constant, mournful companion. It was the galaxy's saddest song. You traveled far beyond the reach of charted space. The star maps became less reliable. They were filled with blank spots and warnings. Here, there be dragons, the old maps used to say. The spacefaring equivalent was more direct. Unstable gravity wells, rogue planetoids, suspected hostile presence. The Stardust Drifter pushed onward. It was a tiny mote of light and life in an endless sea of darkness. Captain Rostova was a superb commander. She navigated the ship through treacherous asteroid fields. She dodged gravitational tides that could tear a ship apart. Her confidence was infectious. Even you started to feel a flicker of optimism. Maybe this time it would be different. Then you entered the Kepler-10 system. The dead star was a black hole in the sky. It was a void that consumed light. All around it was a pale, ghostly nebula, the remnants of its stellar death. The source of the signal was somewhere inside that cloud. The ship's sensors went wild. They screamed with radiation warnings and energy spikes. The calm professionalism of the bridge crew became tense. They looked to the captain. She looked to you. It was your call. You gave a simple nod. Take us in. Slowly. The ship crept into the glowing gas. It was like sailing into a ghost. The first thing you saw was the wreckage. It was a field of broken giants. Colossal starships, shattered and torn. They floated in the nebula like metallic icebergs. They were of a design you had never seen before. Not human. Not any of the known alien races. These ships were organic. They had curves and lines that looked grown, not built. They were more like bone than metal. Some were kilometers long, great skeletal remains drifting in the silent, blue-tinged light. The bridge of the Stardust Drifter was silent. The crew stared at their screens in awe and horror. Who could have built such things? And what could have destroyed them? You flew through the graveyard for hours. The sheer scale of the destruction was hard to comprehend. These were not ships lost in a battle. They were ships that had been slaughtered. Hulls were ripped open like tin cans. Spires that must have been cities were shattered into dust. There were no life signs, no escape pods. Just a cold, silent tomb. The blue echo was stronger here. It seemed to be weeping for the dead. You felt a chill that had nothing to do with the recycled air in the ship. This was a place of profound sorrow. This was a warning. You started to think this was another failed first contact, just on a scale you had never imagined. It wasn't a bad joke to say they had a rougher day than you. Your mission was to find the source of the signal. The sensors traced it to the center of the debris field. There, amidst the shattered bones of a fleet, was one ship. It was intact. It was perfect. A single colossal vessel that had survived the apocalypse. It was a long, needle-nosed craft. Its surface was a smooth, unbroken expanse of the same bone-like material. It was dark. No lights. No power signatures. Just a silent, kilometers-long behemoth hanging in the void. This was the source of the echo. The signal pulsed from its core like a slow, faint heartbeat. The Stardust Drifter approached with caution. The ship was a minnow next to a whale. Captain Rostova hailed the vessel. She sent messages of peace in every known language. There was no reply. The silent ship just floated there. It seemed to be waiting. The decision was made. A boarding party would go across, and you would lead it. Of course you would. This was what you did. You walked into haunted houses in the middle of deep space. You prepared in the shuttle bay, You wore a standard environmental suit. You checked your sidearm, a kinetic pulse rifle. The rest of the boarding party were scientists. They carried scanners and sample kits. They looked at you with a mixture of respect and fear. You were the one who understood the darkness. You gave them a simple briefing: stick together. Touch nothing unless you have to. And if I tell you to run, you run. Do not ask why. Just run. They nodded, their faces pale behind their helmet visors. You tried a little smile. What's the worst that could happen? Don't answer that. The shuttle detached from the Stardust drifter. It crossed the short distance to the silent behemoth. As you got closer, you could see the intricate details on its hull, markings that looked like a form of calligraphy. They swirled and flowed across the surface. An airlock door, perfectly sized for your shuttle, opened on the alien ship. It was an invitation, or a trap. The shuttle docked with a soft hiss. The final checks were made. You stood at the inner door, rifle ready. You took a deep breath. Then you gave the order. Open it. The door slid open. You stepped aboard the relic. The silence was the first thing you noticed. It was absolute. Not just a lack of sound. It was a heavy, pressing silence. It felt like it had weight. The corridors of the ancient craft were vast. The ceilings were dozens of meters high. The walls glowed with a soft, internal luminescence. The air was breathable. The temperature was comfortable. It felt less like a machine and more like a living thing that was holding its breath. Your team moved slowly down the main corridor. Your footsteps were the only sound, echoing in that immense, humming quiet. The architecture was breathtaking. It was a city, not a ship. There were grand archways and delicate bridges. There were plazas and gardens filled with crystalline plants. They chimed softly as you passed. It was a place of beauty and peace. But it was empty. Utterly, hauntingly empty. There were no bodies, no signs of a struggle. Just a perfect, abandoned world. You felt like a trespasser in a sacred place. The gentle hum was everywhere. It seemed to be coming from the walls themselves, a low, resonant frequency that vibrated in your bones. You followed the signal. Your scanners led you deeper into the ship, through halls that twisted in impossible geometric patterns, through chambers that seemed larger on the inside than the outside. The ship was a labyrinth. It was designed to confuse and awe. It was working. One of the scientists on your team, a young xenolinguist named Ben, was captivated. He kept murmuring about the markings on the walls. He said they were not just decorative. He believed they were telling a story, a very, very long story. You told him to focus. There would be time for stories later. If you survived. After what felt like an eternity, you reached the center of the ship. You found a vast, spherical chamber. It was so large that the Stardust drifter could have fit inside it. In the exact center of this chamber, a single, massive crystal floated in midair. It was the source of the hum. It was the source of the blue light. It pulsed with a faint, sorrowful glow. This was the heart of the ship. This was the chamber of whispers. The signal emanated from this crystal. It beat like a heart, slow and rhythmic, a lonely pulse in the dark. The team set up their scanners. They took readings from a safe distance. The energy output was enormous, yet somehow contained. The crystal was a power source beyond anything humanity had ever conceived. But it was more than that. As you approached, you felt something else. A wave of emotion washed over you. Sadness. A deep, profound grief that was so powerful it almost brought you to your knees. The whispers were not audible. They were thoughts, feelings, images that flickered at the edge of your consciousness. They came from the crystal. It was calling out. It was mourning. You reached out a gloved hand, against your own protocols, against every instinct for self-preservation. You had to know. The moment your fingertips touched the crystal surface, the universe exploded in your mind. You were no longer on the ship. You were somewhere else, sometime else. You were seeing a vision, a story, the ancient tale of a lost civilization. The crystal showed you a galaxy teeming with life, worlds of breathtaking beauty, cities of light that danced among the stars. It showed you the builders of the great ship. They were not humanoid. They were beings of light and energy, graceful, ethereal forms that moved with a slow, deliberate peace. You saw them create. They wove stars and planets into cosmic tapestries. They built fleets of bone-white ships to explore the void. They were not warriors. They were thinkers, artists, gardeners on a galactic scale. Their society was a symphony of cooperation. There was no conflict, no greed, just a shared purpose: to learn, to build, to understand the universe. You felt their joy, their sense of wonder. It was a peace you had never known. The vision continued for what felt like a lifetime. You saw their history unfold, their first clumsy attempts at star travel, their first encounters with other, less advanced races. They were always gentle, always helpful. They shared their knowledge freely. They seeded barren worlds with life. They were the caretakers of their corner of the universe. The vision was so beautiful, so idyllic, it made your heart ache. You understood the sorrow of the crystal. It was a recording, a memory of everything that had been lost. You now understood their humor. It was dry, understated, based on cosmic alignments that took 1,000,000 years to pay off. The vision shifted. The peaceful symphony was interrupted by a discordant note. A shadow fell over their galaxy. At first, it was a distant rumor, a region of space that went dark, a star that vanished without a trace. Then it became a wave, a tide of nothingness that was spreading across their home. The vision showed you the devourer. It was not a fleet, not an army. It was a single entity, a being of pure, negative energy, a living black hole with a malevolent intelligence. It did not conquer. It did not enslave. It consumed. It ate stars. It ate planets. It ate entire civilizations. The builders watched in horror as the shadow approached. They saw vibrant star systems wink out of existence. They heard the psychic death screams of 1,000,000,000 worlds. The devourer was relentless. It was absolute. It was the end of all things. Their peaceful nature left them unprepared. They had no weapons, no concept of total war. They had only their knowledge, their ability to build, and so they built. They constructed this fleet, the one whose wreckage you now floated within. It was not a war fleet. It was an ark, a desperate attempt to save a remnant of their people, to flee before the all-consuming shadow. You saw the final days, the frantic effort to finish the ships, the selection of who would go, the heart-wrenching farewells. The fleet of arks was their last hope. They launched into the void, aiming for an unknown galaxy, a new home where they could begin again. But the devourer was too fast. The vision showed the chase, the shadow hunting the fleet across the intergalactic void. It was a cat playing with a mouse. It picked off the ships one by one, ripping them apart with tendrils of dark energy. You felt the terror of the beings of light, their despair as their hopes were extinguished. This ship, the one you were on, was the flagship, the last vessel. The devourer closed in for the final kill. The builders knew they were doomed. They could not escape, but they could perform one final act of defiance. In their last moments, they repurposed their ship's massive power core, the crystal. They turned their ark into a weapon, not a weapon to kill the devourer. They knew that was impossible. They turned it into a trap. They overloaded the crystal. They focused all its energy into a single, complex signal, the deep blue echo, their last desperate message to the universe. The signal's true purpose was not a cry for help. It was not a warning to others to stay away. It was a lure. The builders had analyzed the devourer. They learned what it was drawn to. It was attracted to complex energy signatures, to the very essence of intelligent life. The echo was designed to be irresistible to it, a beacon that would shine across galaxies, a dinner bell for the monster that hunted civilizations. Their final act was one of vengeance. They would use their own extinction to trap the devourer, to make it come to this specific point in space, this graveyard. The vision ended. You collapsed to the floor of the chamber. The psychic backlash was immense. Ben and the others rushed to your side. You pushed them away. You looked at the pulsing crystal. You understood its sorrow and its grim determination. The builders had failed to kill their enemy, but they had succeeded in creating the perfect trap. The only problem was the bait. The trap needed something to be sprung. It needed a fresh source of intelligent life, a complex energy signature to draw the devourer into the final snare. It needed a witness. And that's when the horror of your situation crashed down on you. It hit you with the force of a physical blow. The builders had created the lure, but they were gone. The signal had been echoing for 1,000,000 years, waiting. The devourer was out there, hunting, waiting for the signal to be amplified, to be answered, to be investigated by a curious, star-faring race. By answering the signal, by coming here, you had done more than just spring the trap. You had become the bait. You had led the devourer to your home. The signal from your ship, your communications, your very presence, had painted a giant target on a small, blue world. Earth was the next meal. You scrambled to your feet. You shouted into your comms, "Captain Rostova, get us out of here, now!" But it was too late. The crystal in the center of the chamber flared. Its soft blue light turned into a brilliant, angry red. The humming of the ship intensified. It became a roar. On the bridge of the Stardust Drifter, alarms blared. A massive energy source appeared on their sensors. It was far away, on the very edge of the galaxy. But it was coming. It was coming fast. The devourer had heard the dinner bell. And it was coming for you. You and your team scrambled back to your shuttle. The beautiful, silent ship now felt like a tomb. The crystalline plants seemed to mock you with their silent chimes. The calligraphic writing on the walls seemed to spell out your doom. You made it back to the Stardust Drifter, just as the alien ship began to power up. Lights flickered to life along its massive hull. The entire vessel was waking up. It had been waiting for this moment for 1,000,000 years. Waiting for bait. Waiting for you. You had a front row seat to the end of the world, and it was all your fault. Not the best day at the office. You stood on the bridge of your small science vessel. You watched the tactical display. The red icon of the devourer grew steadily closer. Panic began to set in among the crew. They were scientists, not soldiers. They were not equipped to face a cosmic horror. Captain Rostova looked at you. Her face was grim. She asked for options. You had none. Run? The devourer was faster. Fight? You had a science ship. It was like trying to fight a hurricane with a handgun. The situation was hopeless. You were just the appetizer for a much larger feast. Then, a new transmission came through. It was not from your fleet. It was from the alien ship. The message was not in a language of words. It was a stream of pure data, schematics, equations, tactical plans. The builders had left one last thing behind. A gift from the fallen. The ship itself was the weapon. Its power source, the crystal, could be configured to fire a beam of focused energy. A weapon powerful enough to wound the devourer. Perhaps even kill it. But it required a pilot. It required a mind that could interface with the ancient systems. A mind that had already touched the crystal. It needed you. The data stream was overwhelming. It was the collective knowledge of an entire civilization. Their science, their engineering, their philosophy, everything you needed to understand and command their final creation. It was a desperate gamble. The builders were gone. They could not wield their own weapon. So they left it for the next race that would stumble into their trap. They left it for you. Humanity was not just the bait. You were also the last, best hope. No pressure. You made the choice. You had to. You told Captain Rostova your plan. You would take command of the ancient ship. You would use it to fight the devourer. Here, now far away from Earth. The crew of the Stardust Drifter would have a chance to escape. To take the data, the warning, back home. Rostova argued. She would not abandon you. You told her she had no choice. She was a captain. Her duty was to her crew. Your duty was to the billion lives on the planet you had just endangered. Reluctantly, she agreed. You said your goodbyes. It was a short, grim affair. You shook the captain's hand. You told Ben, the young scientist, to make sure he told their story. The story of the builders. He nodded, his eyes wide with a terrible understanding. You returned to the alien vessel. Alone this time. As you stepped onto its bridge, a place of flowing light and crystal consoles, the ship came fully to life around you. It recognized you. The command interface molded to your touch. The whispers in your mind were no longer just sorrowful. They were filled with a fierce, burning resolve. The builders were with you in spirit. The Stardust Drifter turned and fled. It jumped to faster than light speed, a silver streak against the black. You were alone. You and the ghost of a civilization. You faced the approaching darkness. The devourer was now visible to the naked eye. A hole in reality. A patch of utter blackness that devoured the stars behind it. You settled into the command chair. The ship felt like an extension of your own body. You could feel its power coursing through you. The energy of the crystal was yours to command. You were ready. The warning from the Stardust Drifter spread like wildfire. The data you had uncovered was undeniable. The threat was real. Humanity was not alone in the galaxy. There were other star-born races. The stoic, silicon-based Geodes, the insectoid Cathar, the gaseous forms of the Halcyon Drift. They were ancient rivals, old enemies who had fought wars over resources and territory for centuries. They had no love for humanity. They had no reason to trust you. But they all saw the same data. They all saw the shadow that was coming. At first there was disbelief, then fear, then a slow, dawning realization. This was not a human problem. The devourer did not care about politics or borders. It would consume them all, one by one. Your desperate stand in the Kepler-10 system bought them time. Time to argue, time to posture, and finally, time to act. In a historic meeting in the neutral territory of the Citadel Station, the leaders of the galactic races met. They put aside their ancient hatreds. They forged an unlikely alliance, a single, united fleet to face the common foe. It was an unprecedented moment, a universe uniting against the coming night. Warships from a dozen different species warped into existence around you. A fleet of strange and wonderful designs. A shield against the dark. They formed up behind you. A fleet of hope. They made you their admiral. You, the human who had stumbled into the trap. You, who now commanded the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. The irony was not lost on you. You broadcast a simple message to the Allied fleet. You told them about the builders, about their sacrifice. You told them that today, you would honor that sacrifice. Today, you would not be the bait. You would be the spear. You stand on the bridge of the ancient ship. The ghosts of its creators whisper encouragement in your mind. Before you, the devourer looms, a swirling vortex of absolute nothingness. It is vast, it is terrifying, and it is hungry. Behind you, a fleet of 1,000 ships from 100 worlds stands ready. They are a testament to a hope you thought had died. The hope that even in the face of annihilation, life can find a way. That enemies can become allies. That a single desperate act can change the fate of the galaxy. The deep blue echo is silent now. Its long watch is over. Its purpose has been fulfilled. The trap is set. The monster has arrived, and the universe is ready to fight back. You place your hands on the crystalline controls. The ship hums with power, eager for the battle. You are the last echo of a fallen race. You are the commander of a united galaxy. You are humanity's shield against the star-eating shadow. You open a channel to the fleet. You give the order. The words are not your own, but they are yours to say. They are the final whisper of the builders, a final defiant cry across the void. Charge! And the universe answers with fire and light.